The Empire deployed their best warriors. Humans sent just one. Part 1. First Contact. The massive Krarlok flagship drifted silently through the outer reaches of the Sol system. Commander Drek stood at the observation deck, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he studied the blue-green planet on the main screen. "Is that really it?" he asked, disappointment evident in his voice. "The source of the radio signals we've been monitoring." Science Officer Vel nodded, her crimson eyes narrowing. "Yes, Commander. Planet designation: Earth. Inhabited by a species that calls themselves humans. Their technology is primitive by our standards. They've barely reached their own moon." Commander Drek snorted, hardly worth the Emperor's attention. "Then, perhaps," Vel replied cautiously, "but our preliminary scans show some anomalies." Back on the Krarlok homeworld, Emperor Zarketh received the initial report with similar dismissal. Seated on his crystalline throne, surrounded by advisors, he waved a clawed hand at the holographic display. "Another insignificant world," the Emperor said. "Add it to the registry of planets to be assimilated once we finish with the Centauri systems." High General Moxar, oldest of the Emperor's advisors, stepped forward. "My Emperor, protocol suggests we send a diplomatic envoy first. Their technological development is limited, but our scans show unusual adaptive capabilities." "Very well," Emperor Zarketh sighed. "Send the envoy. I expect a full assessment within one planetary rotation." 3 days later, the diplomatic vessel returned. The envoy, Ambassador Krill, appeared shaken as he entered the imperial chamber. His usual proud posture was diminished, his scales dull from stress. "Report," the Emperor commanded. "The humans are unusual, my Emperor," Krill began. "Their technology is indeed primitive, but their history—" He paused, searching for words. "They've survived multiple near-extinction events. Their adaptive capabilities exceed anything in our records." The Emperor leaned forward. "Explain." "They've endured ice ages, plagues, world wars using atomic weapons, and still they persist. They fight amongst themselves constantly yet unite against external threats. Their biology allows them to survive in nearly any environment on their world." General Moxar frowned. "So they're resilient. Many species are." "Not like this," Krill insisted. "They call themselves the apex predator of their world, and our biological scans confirm it. They possess extreme endurance, remarkable pain tolerance, and cognitive flexibility that allowed them to dominate despite not being the strongest or fastest species." Emperor Zarketh's expression darkened. "Are you suggesting this primitive species poses a threat to the Krarlok Empire? We who have conquered 17 star systems?" "Not yet," Krill said carefully, "but given time." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some advisors laughed at the notion of being threatened by primitives. Others urged caution, citing previous encounters with seemingly harmless species. Emperor Zarketh silenced them with a raised hand. "What of their outpost on the Red Planet?" "Mars," Krill supplied. "A small colony, less than 1,000 humans." The Emperor considered this for a moment, then made his decision. "We will demonstrate our power. Destroy the Mars colony. Make it clear what happens to those who might threaten the Krarlok Empire." Within hours, 3 Krarlok warships descended upon Mars. The human colony had no meaningful defenses. The attack was swift and devastating. Communications arrays were the first targets, cutting off any contact with Earth. Then came the bombardment of habitat domes. It was over in minutes. As the Krarlok ships pulled away from the Red Planet, Commander Drek sent the confirmation to the Emperor. Mars colony eliminated. No survivors. No communications reached Earth. Emperor Zarketh received the news with satisfaction. Now we wait for their response. Let us see how these adaptable humans react to a true display of power. He couldn't have anticipated what came next. The Empire deployed their best warriors. Humans sent just one. Part 2. The Challenge. 3 days after the Mars colony fell silent, the Kraluk Empire's communication system detected an incoming transmission. The signal originated from Earth, directed specifically at the Emperor's flagship. Emperor Zarketh gathered his war council. He expected desperate pleas, or perhaps threats from the humans. Instead, the large screen in the council chamber showed a single woman in a simple gray uniform. Her posture was straight, her expression calm. "I am Admiral Susan Grant of Earth's United Defense Force," she began, her voice steady. "We are aware of your attack on our Mars colony." Several Kraluk officers exchanged surprised glances. The humans had detected their presence faster than expected. Admiral Grant continued, "We have studied your culture through the data exchanged during your diplomatic visit. We understand the Kraluk Empire values strength above all else." Emperor Zarketh leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. "Therefore," said Grant, "we propose resolving our conflict according to your own ancient tradition, champion combat." The war room erupted in surprised hisses and clicking sounds as the Kraluk officers reacted. Emperor Zarketh raised a hand for silence. "The human knows of the Kavath ritual," General Moxar whispered, using the Kraluk term for their sacred combat tradition. On screen, Admiral Grant explained further. "One champion from Earth, one from the Kraluk Empire. The winner determines the fate of Earth. Should your champion win, we will surrender without further resistance. Should our champion win, you will leave our solar system and recognize Earth's independence." Emperor Zarketh could not contain a low rumble of laughter. "They send us a challenge instead of a fleet. How amusing." Military strategist Vexnor moved to the Emperor's side. "It is a clever tactic, my Emperor. They cannot match our military might, so they appeal to our cultural values. Refusing such a challenge would be dishonorable." "As if I would refuse," the Emperor scoffed. "Who do they think would defeat our greatest warrior?" He signaled to open the communication channel. "Human Admiral, I accept your challenge. The combat will take place in 7 days on the abandoned space station at the edge of your system. It will be to surrender or incapacitation." Admiral Grant nodded. "Agreed. We will send our champion." After the transmission ended, Emperor Zarketh turned to his generals. "Summon General Vextor from the outer territories. He will represent the Empire." The name sent a ripple of approval through the council. General Vextor was legendary, undefeated in combat, enhanced with the latest Kraluk military technology, and trained in every known fighting style in the galaxy. 5 days later, the humans sent another message, this time identifying their champion, Major Lisa Reed. The Kraluk intelligence officers scrambled to gather information on this human. The reports came back sparse. Decorated soldier, average height, and build for a human female, specialized in something called adaptive combat techniques. When presented with this information, General Vextor laughed, his enhanced vocal cords producing a sound like grinding metal. "They send a female, without enhancements?" he asked incredulously. "Do they mock us?" Emperor Zarketh studied the human's image. "Perhaps they hope to embarrass us. Defeating such a seemingly weak opponent brings little glory. I will end the combat quickly, my Emperor," Vextor promised. "Then we will take their world." The Emperor nodded, but something about the human's confidence bothered him. "Be cautious, General. There must be more to their strategy than appears." As the Kraluk prepared their champion with advanced weapons and final enhancements, humans across Earth watched their small transport ship carry Major Lisa Reed toward the battle that would determine their planet's fate. Only a select few knew why Earth had chosen to send just one soldier against the Empire's best. The Empire deployed their best warriors. Humans sent just one. Part 3. The Champion. Major Lisa Reed sat alone in the training room of Earth's Defense Headquarters. Sweat dripped from her forehead as she completed her 500th push-up. Her muscles burned, but her breathing remained controlled and steady. The door slid open. General Alan Foster stepped in, holding a tablet. "Still at it, Reed?" he asked, looking at his watch. "You've been training for 6 hours straight. Lisa stood up and wiped her face with a towel. "Can't afford to rest, sir. Not with what's at stake." General Foster nodded grimly. "The psych team finished your evaluation. Want to know what they said?" "Let me guess," Lisa replied, taking a drink of water. "They think I'm crazy for volunteering." "Actually, they said you're perfect for this mission." He handed her the tablet. "Your stress response is unlike anything they've seen before. Most people freeze or panic under extreme pressure. You become more focused, more efficient." Lisa glanced at the reports without surprise. "My dad called it getting quiet. When things get bad, everything slows down for me." In another part of the building, a heated debate was underway. Military leaders from around the world had gathered to discuss the Kralok Challenge. "This is insanity," shouted Colonel Henry Jackson, slamming his fist on the table. "Sending just one soldier against their best warrior. We should be launching everything we have." Admiral Susan Grant remained calm. "Our intelligence from the diplomatic exchange is clear. The Kralok respect strength, but they define it differently than we do. They value individual combatability above all else." "But why Reed?" asked another officer. "She's not even the biggest or strongest we have." Dr. Paul Wilson, head of xenobiology, stepped forward. "Because the Kralok will be expecting us to send someone like that. They're a species that evolved from apex predators. Their warriors are all enormous, heavily muscled, and cybernetically enhanced." He displayed a hologram of Kralok physiology. "But they have weaknesses. Their joints are vulnerable. Their reflexes, while fast, follow predictable patterns. And most importantly, they tire quickly in sustained combat." "And that's where Reed comes in," Admiral Grant continued. "Her endurance is off the charts. She's mastered 5 different Earth combat styles, and she processes combat situations faster than any soldier we tested." Back in the training facility, Lisa was now working with Dr. Kate Miller, the lead weapons specialist. "This looks like a simple combat knife," Dr. Miller explained, handing Lisa a blade. "But the edge contains molecularly aligned carbon that can cut through Kralok armor at the joint seams." She then showed Lisa what appeared to be ordinary fighting gloves. "These disperse impact forces across your knuckles while concentrating the strike force at the point of contact. They'll allow you to hit much harder without injury." "Simple tools that look primitive," Lisa noted, examining the equipment. "They'll underestimate them." "Just like they'll underestimate you," Dr. Miller replied with a smile. The night before departure, Lisa sat in the base chapel. She wasn't particularly religious, but she appreciated the quiet. General Foster found her there, sitting in silence. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, sitting beside her. Lisa shook her head. "No, just getting quiet." "The whole world will be watching tomorrow," Foster said. "Billions of people counting on you." "That's why I volunteered," she replied simply. "Better to have one person carry that weight than millions in a war." As dawn broke, Lisa boarded the small transport ship that would take her to the abandoned space station. A small crowd of military personnel had gathered to see her off. "Remember your training," General Foster said, shaking her hand. "Remember what we know about them." Lisa nodded, her face calm. "I know what to do." As the ship's doors closed, Dr. Wilson whispered to Admiral Grant, "Do you think the Kralok have any idea what's coming for them?" Admiral Grant watched the ship rise into the morning sky. "Not a clue." The Empire deployed their best warriors. Humans sent just one. Part 4. The Arena. The abandoned space station hung in the darkness, a relic from before Earth's nations had united their space programs. Once a symbol of scientific cooperation, it now served as a battleground. Lisa's small transport docked at the designated airlock. She wore a simple gray jumpsuit with Earth's flag on the shoulder. The only equipment she carried was a small duffel bag containing her combat gear. 3 Kralok officers waited on the other side of the airlock. They towered over her, each nearly 8 feet tall with scaled skin that shifted colors in the dim light. Their eyes widened slightly at her appearance. "You are the human champion?" asked the lead officer, his translator creating rough English. "Major Lisa Reed," she confirmed, meeting his gaze steadily. "United Earth Defense Force." The Kralok looked at each other, mandibles clicking in what Lisa recognized as their version of laughter. "Follow us," the leader said finally. They led her through corridors that had been modified to accommodate Kralok physiology. The ceilings were higher, the doorways wider. The station's artificial gravity had been adjusted to match Earth's, a small concession to fairness. They entered what had once been the station's main hub. The large circular room had been cleared of equipment, creating an open arena about 50 feet across. A small delegation of Kralok officials lined one side. On a raised platform sat a communication array. "The Emperor observes remotely," explained her guide, pointing to the large screen above the platform. The stern face of Emperor Zarketh filled the display, his golden scales gleaming under the lights of his throne room. Lisa nodded respectfully toward the screen, then turned as a new door opened. General Vextor entered the arena. Lisa had studied images of Kralok warriors, but seeing Vextor in person was different. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, his muscular frame enhanced by visible cybernetic implants along his arms and neck. His scales were deep crimson, marked with black patterns that signified his battle achievements. His eyes fixed on Lisa, narrowing to slits. "This is their champion." Vextor's voice boomed, his translator not hiding his contempt. "I expected at least their largest male." Lisa said nothing, simply studying him with calm, analytical eyes. A Kralok official stepped forward. "The combat will proceed according to ancient tradition. It ends when one champion surrenders or can no longer fight. Each warrior may use one melee weapon and whatever physical abilities they possess." The official turned to Lisa. "Human, prepare yourself. Combat begins in 10 of your Earth minutes." Lisa nodded and moved to a small alcove designated as her preparation area. She opened her duffel bag and began changing into her combat gear, fitted black pants, and a long-sleeved compression shirt. She strapped on the special gloves Dr. Miller had given her and secured a sheath containing her knife to her thigh. Across the arena, Vextor performed an elaborate pre-combat ritual. He moved through a series of poses that displayed his strength and speed, his cybernetic enhancements glowing with each movement. The watching Kralok clicked their approval. Lisa's preparation was simpler. She stretched thoroughly, her movements efficient and methodical. She controlled her breathing, allowing her heart rate to slow to a resting pace. On the screen, Emperor Zarketh watched with growing amusement. "The human female appears so fragile," he commented to his advisors. "Vextor will snap her in half within moments." General Moxar, standing beside the Emperor's throne, wasn't so certain. "She shows no fear, my Emperor. That is unusual." "Because she does not yet understand what she faces," the Emperor replied dismissively. The official signaled for both champions to enter the center of the arena. Vextor moved with surprising grace for his size, brandishing a wicked curved blade nearly as long as Lisa's entire arm. Lisa stepped forward, knife held low at her side, her stance relaxed but balanced. "Begin," called the official, quickly stepping back from the arena. Vextor let out a thunderous roar that echoed through the station, his battle cry meant to paralyze opponents with fear. Lisa didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled slightly, her eyes focused entirely on the massive warrior charging toward her. The battle for Earth had begun. The Empire deployed their best warriors. Humans sent just one. Part 5. The battle begins. Vextor's first attack came with overwhelming speed. His massive blade sliced through the air, where Lisa had stood a split second earlier. She had sidestepped just enough to avoid the strike, not wasting a single motion. The Kralok warriors watching from the sidelines clicked their mandibles appreciatively at their champion's power. One leaned toward another and whispered, "The human is quick, but only running. See how she doesn't counterattack." Indeed, Lisa seemed content to dodge Vextor's attacks. She moved efficiently around the arena, studying his movements, always maintaining the same distance between them. Stand and fight. Vextor growled, his translator making his frustration clear. Or are humans only good at fleeing? Lisa remained silent, her breathing steadied despite 5 minutes of constant movement. Sweat had begun to form on her brow, but her eyes never lost their focus. Vextor lunged again, this time feinting high before sweeping his blade low toward her legs. Lisa jumped the sweeping blade and rolled away, coming up in a defensive stance. The human has some skill, admitted one of the Krulok officials, but no aggression. On the viewing screen, Emperor Zarketh looked increasingly bored. When will Vextor stop playing with his food and finish her? 15 minutes into the battle, something changed. Vextor's movements, once lightning fast, had slowed slightly. His breathing had become heavier, and a sheen of moisture covered his scales. Lisa noticed it too. When Vextor's next attack came, instead of merely dodging, she deflected his arm with a precise strike to his wrist and delivered a quick jab to his side before dancing away again. The blow wasn't powerful, but it landed exactly between two armored scales. Vextor hissed in surprise. "First blood to the human," remarked General Moxar, watching through the Emperor's feed. "Interesting." Anger flashed in Vextor's eyes. His next series of attacks came with renewed fury, driving Lisa backward across the arena. His blade came within inches of her several times, once slicing a small tear in her sleeve. But Lisa remained calm, even as she was forced to give ground. Her eyes tracked every movement of Vextor's body, not just his weapon, but his feet, his shoulders, the telltale shifts in his weight that telegraphed his next move. 25 minutes into the fight, the Krulok officials had fallen silent. No combat with Vextor had ever lasted this long. "The human should be exhausted," one whispered. "Why doesn't she tire?" Indeed, while Lisa's shirt was now dark with sweat, her movements remained precise and her breathing controlled. Meanwhile, Vextor's attacks, while still dangerous, had lost their initial explosiveness. After one particularly wild swing, Lisa saw her opportunity. As Vextor's momentum carried his blade past her, she stepped inside his guard and struck 3 rapid blows, one to his elbow joint, one to his ribs, and one to his throat. Vextor staggered back, coughing. The Krulok observers hissed in shock. Emperor Zarketh leaned forward on his throne, no longer looking bored. "What just happened?" he demanded. "The human struck vulnerable points, my emperor," General Moxar explained, with remarkable precision. Vextor recovered and roared in rage. He activated his cybernetic enhancements, causing the implants along his arms to pulse with energy. His next strike came with renewed speed, catching Lisa by surprise. The flat of his blade struck her shoulder, sending her tumbling across the floor. The Krulok observers chittered excitedly as Lisa grimaced in pain, but she rolled to her feet immediately, her knife still gripped firmly in her hand. "Now it begins," she said, speaking for the first time since the battle started. Something in her tone silenced the Krulok observers. Even Vextor paused. Lisa's stance shifted subtly. Where before she had been defensive, now she balanced on the balls of her feet, knife held in a reverse grip. Her eyes had taken on a new intensity, focused and calm at the same time. "I understand you now," she said to Vextor, her voice carrying across the arena. Then she moved forward, no longer waiting for his attack. Emperor Zarketh's mandibles clicked anxiously as he watched the human advance toward his champion. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. The Empire deployed their best warriors. Humans sent just one. Part 6. Understanding the Enemy. Lisa moved toward Vextor with newfound purpose. Her previous caution gave way to calculated aggression. She feinted left, then ducked under Vextor's defensive swing, slashing her knife across the back of his knee where the scales were thinnest. Vextor howled, more in surprise than pain. "How did you know?" he demanded, limping slightly as he turned to face her. Lisa didn't answer. Instead, she circled him, her movements economical and precise. The Kreluk officials murmured among themselves. "The human knows our physiology," one said nervously. "She targets the weak points between scales." On the viewing screen, Emperor Zarketh's eyes narrowed. "How is this possible? Humans have never encountered our kind in combat before." In the arena, Vextor grew increasingly frustrated. His size and strength should have ended this fight quickly, yet the small human kept finding ways to evade his most powerful attacks while landing her own. Worse, he was tiring while she seemed to gain energy. "Enough games," Vextor snarled. He pressed a sequence on his wrist guard. Immediately, the cybernetic implants along his spine glowed bright blue. His movements suddenly became faster, his strength visibly increasing as the implants pumped combat stimulants into his system. "He's using the forbidden enhancements," gasped a Kralok official. "That violates the sacred combat traditions." Emperor Zarketh saw it too, but said nothing. Winning mattered more than tradition now. Lisa recognized the change immediately. Vextor's renewed assault drove her back, his blade moving in blurs of motion. A slash caught her arm, drawing blood. Another narrowly missed her face as she jerked away. "Now you see true Krelok power," Vextor taunted, pressing his advantage. Lisa retreated, seemingly overwhelmed by his enhanced speed. She stumbled backward, nearly losing her footing. Sensing victory, Vextor lunged for a killing blow. But instead of trying to dodge, Lisa stepped toward him. She slipped inside his guard, her knife finding the gap between his chest plates. Not deep enough to kill, but perfectly placed to cause maximum pain. Vextor roared and swung wildly. Lisa was already moving, ducking under his arm and delivering a precise strike to a nerve cluster at the base of his neck. Vextor's right arm went temporarily numb. His blade clattered to the floor. "How?" he gasped, backing away to retrieve his weapon with his left hand. "How do you know these things?" Lisa finally answered him. "We studied you. While your diplomats were scanning our cities, we were learning everything about your physiology, your combat techniques, your weaknesses." She circled him calmly, despite the blood dripping from her arm. "Your species evolved from ambush predators. Powerful initial attacks but poor endurance. Your cybernetics compensate for that, but they overheat with prolonged use." Vextor stared at her in shock. She was right. His implants were already beginning to burn against his scales, their effectiveness diminishing. "We knew you'd underestimate us," Lisa continued. "You value size and strength. You augment yourselves with technology because you don't believe in your natural abilities." She moved in again, this time aiming for the overheating implants along his spine. Her knife struck with surgical precision, disabling one of the main control nodes. Vextor stumbled, his enhanced strength fluctuating. He swung his blade in desperate defense, but Lisa had already anticipated his move. She caught his wrist with both hands and used his own momentum to throw him off balance. The massive Krelok warrior crashed to the floor. Before he could rise, Lisa was on his back, her knife positioned at a critical junction between his neck plates. "Humans don't have your physical advantages," she said, her voice calm despite her exertion. "So we learn to use our opponent's strength against them. We adapt, we endure, and we study our enemies very, very carefully." Emperor Zarketh watched in stunned silence as his undefeated champion struggled to dislodge the human from his back. But Vextor's movements were growing weaker, his enhanced systems failing, his natural strength depleted. "Surrender," Lisa said quietly. "There's no shame in it." Vextor made one final attempt to throw her off. Lisa responded by pressing her knife deeper, drawing a trickle of green blood. Vextor began, his translator struggling with his labored breathing. "I surrender." The arena fell completely silent. The Empire deployed their best warriors. Humans sent just one. Part 7. The Aftermath. Silence hung in the arena. Lisa slowly removed her knife from Vextor's neck and stepped back, allowing the defeated Kralok warrior to rise. The watching officials remained frozen, mandibles slack with shock. On the viewing screen, Emperor Zarketh's golden scales had darkened to a dull bronze, a sign of extreme distress in Kralok physiology. His greatest warrior, defeated by an unenhanced human female. It was unthinkable. "The combat is concluded," announced the lead official, his voice unsteady. "The human champion is victorious." Lisa stood straight despite her injuries, her breathing returning to normal. She slid her knife back into its sheath and did something none of the Kralok expected. She extended her hand toward Vextor. The massive warrior stared at the offered hand in confusion. "It's a human gesture," Lisa explained, "between warriors who respect each other." Vextor hesitated, then grasped her hand awkwardly in his much larger one. "You fought with honor," he admitted, "even when I did not." Emperor Zarketh found his voice at last. "This outcome is unexpected," he said through the communication system. His advisors could hear the carefully controlled rage behind his words. "But the Empire honors its agreements, however. Unfortunate." Lisa turned to face the screen. "Then Earth's independence is recognized. Your forces will withdraw from our system." "As agreed," the Emperor confirmed stiffly. "Though I must know, how did a primitive species prepare so thoroughly for this encounter?" Lisa's expression remained neutral. "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've learned that victory often belongs not to the strongest, but to the most prepared." Back on Earth, the transmission reached the United Defense Headquarters. The room erupted in cheers as Lisa's victory was confirmed. Admiral Grant smiled, but quickly called for order. "It worked," General Foster said quietly. "Your strategy worked." "The psychological profile of the Kralok species was clear," Admiral Grant replied. "They couldn't resist the challenge. Their cultural emphasis on warrior prowess made it impossible for them to refuse single combat, especially when they were so certain of victory." 3 days later, Lisa's transport returned to Earth. Despite her wishes for a quiet return, crowds gathered outside the landing facility. News of her victory had spread worldwide, making her an instant hero. Admiral Grant met her as she disembarked, still wearing her bandaged arm in a sling. "Well done, Major," she said, shaking Lisa's hand. "How does it feel to have saved humanity?" Lisa looked uncomfortable with the attention. "I just applied my training, Admiral. Anyone would have done the same." "Not anyone," Grant corrected her. "That's why we chose you." Later that evening, in a secure conference room, Earth's leaders gathered to discuss the implications of their victory. Representatives from major powers sat around a large table, with Lisa present to provide her first-hand account. "The Kralok fleet began withdrawing this morning," reported the head of space defense. "Long-range scanners confirmed they're heading back to their territory." "Will they honor the agreement long-term?" asked one of the political leaders. Admiral Grant nodded. "Our xenopsychologists believe so. The Kralok value their honor system above all else. Breaking their word after a sacred combat would destroy the Emperor's standing among his people." "And what about other alien species?" someone else asked. "Word of this will spread." "That was part of the plan," Grant admitted. "The Kralok aren't the only expansionist empire out there, but now they all know something crucial about humanity." "What's that?" asked the young diplomat. Lisa, who had been quiet until now, answered, "That we study our opponents carefully, that we find innovative solutions, and that it only takes one of us to make a difference." As the meeting continued, Lisa glanced out the window at the stars. The Kralok were leaving, but humanity's introduction to the wider galaxy had just begun. Other species would be watching, reconsidering their assessments of the small blue planet. Earth had earned itself some time and respect. Lisa knew that future challenges would come, but for now, her mission was complete. One human had been enough. This time.